You know what happens after someone dies today. A phone call is made. A doctor signs a form. A funeral home arrives. The body is washed, moved, cooled, covered, named, recorded, and placed somewhere that tells the living what to do next. Now remove all of that. No hospital room. No ambulance. No cemetery gate. No priest. No paperwork. No stone marker. No written name. No quiet refrigerated room where time seems to slow down. There is only the body. It lies near the place where people slept. The face is still recognizable. The hands are still the hands of someone the group knew. But the air is already changing. Insects will come. Scavengers may smell it. Children may stare. Adults may turn away. And the living now face a question older than any grave. What do you do with someone who is no longer alive, but is not yet gone from the group? That question becomes dangerous if we answer it too quickly. Because 1.2 million years ago, we do not have clear evidence of funerals. We do not have a grave with flowers. We do not have a carved stone that says this person was loved. We do not have a cemetery. We do not even have enough preserved evidence to watch one group make one clear decision. The honest answer begins with silence. But silence is not the same as nothing. A dead body creates problems that every human group must solve. It changes the smell of a camp. It attracts animals. It may frighten the young. It may signal danger nearby. It may also hold memory, attachment, fear, anger, or obligation. So the real question is not simply, did ancient humans hold funerals 1.2 million years ago? The better question is this. Before there were burials we can prove, before ritual left strong marks in the earth, how might the living have crossed the first line between a body as a practical problem and a person worth remembering? Start with a clue that is not about death at all. At Dmanisi, in what is now Georgia, researchers found the skull and jaw of an early human who lived about 1.77 million years ago. This individual had lost almost all of his teeth long before death. His jaw had changed because of it. That means he survived for a while after losing the ability to chew normally. Some researchers have suggested this may be evidence that others helped him survive. Maybe they shared softer food. Maybe they tolerated his weakness. Maybe the group structure allowed someone old, injured, or limited to remain alive longer than pure strength alone would allow. This does not prove compassion in the modern sense. And it does not prove a funeral. But it proves something important. Long before clear burials, some early humans may have lived inside groups where a weakened body was not immediately abandoned. Care before death is not the same as honor after death. But it changes the emotional landscape. If you have fed someone slowly because they could not chew, if you have waited for them, protected them, recognized their face every morning, then their death is not just a biological event. It is a break in the pattern of the group. Someone who was there yesterday is now a body that cannot answer. What happens next may leave no trace. If the group moved away, archaeology might see nothing. If scavengers scattered the remains, the bones might look natural. If the body was placed in bushes, carried to a ravine, left outside camp, covered lightly with branches, or watched for one night, almost none of that would survive for 1,000,000 years. And this is where modern people often misunderstand the past. We look for graves because graves are visible. But grief does not begin with a grave. It begins with attention. A living person notices that a body cannot always be treated exactly like a broken tool. A dead animal, or a pile of waste. Maybe not in every group. Maybe not for every person. Maybe not every time. But the possibility opens as soon as social memory exists. Then the evidence becomes darker. At Gran Dolina, in the Atapuerca Mountains of Spain, human remains dated to more than 800,000 years ago show cut marks, breakage, and processing patterns similar to animal butchery. The remains are usually linked to Homo antecessor. Researchers have argued that some of these bodies were butchered and consumed. That is not a scene of honor. It is a warning. The dead were not automatically sacred in the deep past. A human body could become food. It could become evidence of violence. It could become the result of conflict between groups. It could be treated like prey. The line between one of us and meat was not guaranteed by biology alone. This is uncomfortable. But it matters. Because if we only imagine ancient humans gently covering every dead person with flowers, we create a fantasy. If we imagine them as emotionless animals, we create another fantasy. The truth is more difficult. Early humans probably had different relationships to different bodies. A child from another group. An enemy. A stranger. A relative. An elder who had been fed for years. These were not the same social category. Even today, the treatment of the dead depends on identity, kinship, conflict, status, belief, and fear. In the deep past, those distinctions may have been even more immediate, because there were fewer formal rules to hide behind. So if someone asks, how did ancient humans honor their dead 1.2 million years ago? The evidence forces us to pause. We cannot say they buried them. We cannot say they prayed. We cannot say they believed in an afterlife. We cannot say they held funerals. But we can say the living had to decide. Leave the body near camp, and the camp changes. Move it, and someone must touch it. Carry it far, and the living spend energy on the dead. Cover it, and you create a separation between the face and the group. Return to the place later, and memory attaches to land. Each choice is small, but each choice changes what the body means. The first step toward honoring the dead may not have looked like a ceremony. It may have looked like inconvenience. Someone stays back for a moment. Someone pulls the body away from the sleeping area. Someone keeps children from touching it. Someone recognizes a familiar tool beside the body and does not take it immediately. Someone looks at the face longer than necessary. None of that is a funeral. But it is not nothing. Now move forward in time, and the ground begins to speak more clearly. At Sima de los Huesos, the pit of bones, in northern Spain, archaeologists found the remains of many Middle Pleistocene hominins deep inside a cave system. The site is roughly 430,000 years old. The location is difficult. The concentration of bodies is unusual. And a carefully made hand axe, often nicknamed Excalibur, was found there. Some researchers have argued that this may represent one of the earliest examples of mortuary behavior. Maybe bodies were placed in the pit. Maybe the place had meaning. Maybe the dead were being separated from ordinary life in a deliberate way. But caution matters. Other scientists have asked whether natural processes, cave access, falls, water movement, or later disturbance could explain parts of the deposit. The question is not settled as neatly as a documentary sentence wants it to be. Still, Sima de los Huesos changes the scale of the mystery. We are no longer looking at one scattered bone. We are looking at many bodies in one deep place. If those bodies were placed there by other humans, then the dead were not simply abandoned where they fell. They were moved into a special location. And that would be a major reversal. Honor may not have begun as a decorated grave. It may have begun as removal. A decision to take the dead out of ordinary space and put them somewhere else. That sounds cold until you think about what modern funerals do. They also remove the dead from the living room, the hospital bed, the street, the battlefield, or the accident site. They move the body into a controlled space so the living can continue, remember, and reorganize themselves around absence. The body is gone, but the relationship is not erased. Later still, the evidence becomes stronger, but the debate does not disappear. In the Rising Star Cave system of South Africa, researchers have argued that Homo naledi may have deliberately placed dead individuals deep inside the cave. If true, that would change how we think about brains, bodies, and ritual. Homo naledi had a much smaller brain than Homo sapiens. So deliberate body disposal, if proven, would challenge the idea that only large-brained humans could treat the dead in complex ways. But this claim has been strongly debated. Other researchers have argued that the evidence is not yet convincing enough to prove deliberate burial or symbolic behavior. They have called for stronger analysis of sediments, bone movement, cave formation, and post-depositional processes. This debate is useful for the story. It shows how hard it is to recognize ancient intention. A bone can tell you it was cut. A skeleton can tell you it decomposed in a pit. Sediment can tell you whether soil moved around it. But a bone cannot easily tell you whether someone cried. A cave cannot easily tell you whether a gesture was practical, fearful, symbolic, or all three at once. Finally, with much younger burials, the picture becomes clearer. At Penga ya Sidi in Kenya, archaeologists found the burial of a young child known as Mtoto. The burial is about 78.000 years old. The child was placed in a pit. The body was flexed on its side. The surrounding sediment showed that the pit had been deliberately dug and filled. The position of the head may suggest some kind of perishable support. Perhaps something like a pillow. Here, the evidence is no longer just a body in a strange place. It is arrangement. It is covering. It is preparation. It is the living changing the ground around the dead. By this point, we can speak much more confidently about intentional burial. But the emotional roots of that behavior may be older than the first clear grave. And this is the central twist. The earliest honor may be archaeologically invisible. The moment that mattered most may not have been a flower, a symbol, or a ceremony. It may have been the first time a group treated a dead body as more than waste, more than meat, and more than danger, even if they had no formal ritual at all. But archaeology cannot reward us for imagining too much. So we have to hold two truths at once. First, there is no strong evidence that humans 1.2 million years ago honored their dead in the way later humans did. Second, the social capacities that could make death meaningful, recognition, attachment, care, memory, and obligation, may reach very deep into the human story. That is why the question matters today. Modern funerals can make death look like a system. Forms are signed. Vehicles arrive. Professionals know what to do. The body is cleaned, cooled, transported, and placed inside a scheduled ritual. The living are guided through a script they did not invent. This is a mercy. But it also hides the ancient core of the moment. A death still asks the living to make a decision. What will be moved? What will be kept? What will be covered? What place will carry memory? What object will suddenly feel different because the person who used it is gone? 1,000,000 years ago, there may have been no grave. There may have been only a body, a group, a smell in the air, a tool lying beside a hand, and a choice that cost time. Do we leave? Do we carry? Do we cover? Do we remember? The past does not let us answer with certainty. But it does make one thing clear. Honoring the dead did not begin as a perfect ceremony. It began with the living facing the uncomfortable fact that a person can disappear, while their place in the group remains. And the next time you see a funeral, a grave, a photograph, a name on a stone, or even a quiet message saying someone has passed away, you are looking at the modern version of an ancient problem. The body must be handled. The absence must be understood. The living must continue. And somewhere between those three tasks, human beings began to turn death into memory.